All right. So, hello out there. If you can hear us, let's get a quick tech check before we get started. Anybody out there who can type in the comments, please jump in. Yeah, I'll tell you, technology can get you.
Unless it's like crickets. Am I that
Ah,
am I that
Flavius,
unpopular?
Flavius is out there. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the latest Facebook Live in support of the Healthy Dog Expo being held here in Albany this coming May 20th and 21st. Hello, Janet, up from the North Country, where it's a beautiful day here in Albany. It's about 50 and there's not a cloud in the sky. I'd wager Janet's a little bit colder up there, but probably still having great weather. So today we're talking with Hanna of Evermore Pet Food, and we've just been talking about some stuff as we worked through getting set up. You are in for an amazing amount of science, so you may want a notepad. Of course, you can watch the replay, but prepare yourselves to be dazzled by her knowledge because she is amazing.
Oh god, I really hope I live up to this.
You got to live up to that, girl.
I'm not a scientist, I just play one on Facebook. So
I am so happy you were able to join us.
Oh, me too. Um,
So tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
sure. So I am the co-founder of Evermore Pet Food. I've been doing this since 2009, which feels a little bit crazy. I'm gonna cop to it. I don't have a science background originally, but you learn as you go. And I did have to take a lot of science undergrad. But the most important thing with everything is just to stay curious and learn what's happening out there. And I guess I should give a little bit of a background on Evermore, huh?
Yeah, that would be terrific because I mean, I didn't realize it was 2009.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's 14 years and one pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic was the most fun part, of course.
Of course. But
But,
you started quite a while ago.
we did when we just, like, do the math on this because we see all these other companies, and when we started, there were 4 companies around at the same time. One of them that started at the same time. One of them was,
Mhm.
Just Food for Dogs, one was Lucky Dogs, and one was Frenchie's, which is now out of business. So,
Yes,
we
sadly.
were we were really amongst the first foods in this category, and I think we might have been the first people to use the term "gently cooked."
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which is what we are. We do a gently cooked food that I like to say is ethically sourced, but even that, we're trying to step away from that language because everyone's using it now, and
Mhm.
it's becoming a little bit more meaningless. So
As happens.
yeah, it's unfortunate. So I think specificity is really important when we talk about things. And, our food, one of the things that we like to talk about is organic qualities.
Mm.
Now, a lot of people want organic pet food, and there's some interesting issues there. One of which, and a lot of people make a big deal out of this, and I tend to think it's less of a big deal, but there are no specific rules for organic pet
Right,
food. And like
right.
I said, I think people think that this is more problematic in general than I do. So basically, there's organic feed. And as we know, pet food, other than human grade food, now like falls under those feed rules. And up until very recently, human grade was that kind of like fuzzy category too.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so there's organic feed. The thing is, with organic feed, the same things that are not allowed in organic food are also not allowed in organic feed, because the idea is that these are mostly thought of as animals in the supply chain that's going to meat, that's going to people. So
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, organic feed, in terms of what can't go into it, um,
Right,
is the same as the human organic, and that is an important distinction.
yeah.
But
I find just teaching people the difference between food and feed
oh yeah,
is it blows their mind.
It
that
really does.
technically it's dog feed,
Yeah,
not
I mean, when I
not
learned that, it's like we're not we're giving our pets food, it really should feel that way and it really shouldn't be different. But as we know it really is.
quite.
So also what tends to confuse people is that there's this concept of organic. Like when you think about organic, you think about healthier food, you think
Mhm.
about people that wear Birkenstocks, you think, but there's like a lot of people don't have any idea of the specificity of what that means. So
Yeah.
when you see organic on a label or on a website, this is a term that has a definition. It is a term defined by the USDA. And food needs to set certain parameters to be an organic food to have that USDA bug. So these parameters broadly are, that you can't use pesticides that are not considered organic pesticides. Not that you can't use any pesticides. That's a huge
Right.
misconception people have, that organic food doesn't have pesticides. There are plenty of pesticides out there that are pretty toxic that are also organic. So
That's incredible.
yeah, I just
I never thought about pesticides being organic.
yeah, there's plenty of things in nature that act as pesticides.
Mhm.
Even like boric acid, or things
Right.
like clove oil. There are things that are natural substances that bugs don't like that will kill fungus, that type
Mhm.
of thing.
Sure,
So
sure.
organic and pesticide free are different. And I'm giving all this information as someone, by the way, who makes a food that has like mostly organic ingredients. So, but
Mhm.
I just want to be sure like that people understand what that means.
Yeah.
Organic food can't have GMOs, genetically modified organisms.
Mhm.
It can't use animals that are raised with the use of antibiotics or hormones.
Right.
So these are all like things that can't be inorganic, right? It's in
Mhm.
terms of the way that the USDA defines it, it's kind of like a series of no's. Um, there also should be, in terms of the broader understanding, it's the sustainable practices. It's sort of like working in concert with the earth, and
Mhm.
animal welfare should be a huge component of it.
Definitely.
In terms of like the USDA definitions, there is an animal welfare component. However, there are a lot of loopholes around this. So we'll talk about that more later when we get up to animal welfare.
Yeah, yeah, because
Um,
that's really important.
and then that's actually kind of where we as a company kind of place some most of our priorities is on animal welfare. And even though and the other thing that you have to think about is a lot of meats that aren't organic, that are not certified organic, if they are living up to these high welfare standards, they're meeting those same criteria,
Mhm.
in terms of not having any of the things in the nose of organic. Again, though, we'll get into that later. And
Yeah.
then there's this sort of land stewardship aspect of it, using regenerative practices, not doing these like huge like monoculture crops, and sort of like I'd like to call it the like organic industrial complex,
Mhm.
because organic is big business. It's not necessarily done in a way that's still like the most respectful for the planet.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like the nodes of organic, and I'm just trying to give people like a realistic picture
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what they can and can't expect.
Let me
Uh,
show you Alicia's comment. Um, and she gets it. Uh,
oh yeah.
and yeah, the higher dosing. Um, so yeah.
And again, like we do use, I just will say our produce is all 100% organic, because when we're thinking about it in the biggest picture, we do still believe that that's what's best. Um, but just from that standpoint, I just want to make sure that people do understand what they
Yeah.
are and aren't getting.
Aren't. Yeah.
So there is no, if you use an organic ingredient in pet food, that is the only adjective that's allowed on a label. You read a pet food label,
Right.
and the only word that's allowed to modify, what the ingredient is organic. If you see, say, the word free range, and this is in the ingredient panel.
In the ingredient
So
panel,
if you
yeah.
see the word like free range or wild or any of that stuff in the ingredient panel, that label is actually like not a compliant label.
Yeah. But
And
you
it's
can say organic chicken
but you
or
can say organic, exactly. That's the only
and
word.
what about you'll see probably more in kibble. they'll put an ingredient, chicken fat or chicken, and then in parentheses, source of glucosamine.
You're allowed to do that.
You
You
can do that in
you
parentheses.
can do the parens. I think there's specific rules around that. We don't do any of that, but we actually
Yeah.
might be doing that on our cat food for a few things.
Mhm.
We're working on cat food right now. We only have dog food. Just
Excellent.
wanted to put that out there. Oh gosh, I like completely lost my train. Oh, we're talking about labels.
About labels, yeah.
So food
So
like ours, we're not fully certified organic, but we have a lot of organic ingredients, so we have those
right.
adjectives there. Now, in terms of fully certified organic pet foods,
Mhm.
there are a few on the market.
Yeah.
They're very expensive. They're pretty much, I don't know of any fresh foods. They're pretty much exclusively canned and kibble, right?
Okay. Mhm.
And they're all organic. They're USDA certified organic, and you can like read these lists of ingredient, and they're not great lists, right?
Right.
They're organic ingredients, but they're subpar organic ingredients, right?
Yeah. They
And then
didn't
you'll
make
still
it
see,
into the human food chain.
yeah, and you'll still see like huge like laundry lists of supplements on them, and those are not organic ingredients. Another
Right.
thing about organic, I love how I'm coming across as all anti-organic, and I'm like, buy my mostly organic food. But another thing about organic is you can use that USDA bug, but only 95% of what goes
Right.
into the food can be organic. So there can be a lot when you're dealing with supplements that are such a small inclusion, a lot
Yeah.
of those can be inorganic. And some inorganic supplements, it's not necessarily like a bad thing. They're like a mineral, and they're not necessarily a synthetic bad form. But just to be aware that if you're getting something like that, it only has to be 95% organic.
95%.
And there are certain ingredients that in very small inclusions, if they're not organic, can be problematic. So just wanted to put that out there. And there's also wholesomeness, right?
Right.
Or what I like to call wholesomeness. Just because something is organic doesn't mean it's, free from aflatoxins.
Yeah, it could still be moldy or
Still
half
still
spoiled
can be
or
moldy, still can have heavy metals, still can have all that stuff.
yep.
So this is just, I want to give people like a full picture here. That
Mhm.
said, there are a lot of great benefits to organic, right? You
Oh,
are
definitely.
not having these dangerous pesticides. You're not
Mhm.
having animals that are subject to antibiotics and hormones. And, overall, I would say the goods of organic when you're looking at, these fresher ingredients do outweigh, these other concerns that I brought up.
Definitely.
And then what else I'm sorry, like my mind is there's just
There's
so
so
much
much information
there is
traveling through here.
so much to talk about here.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the marketing around everything and like the true false of it. Where was I gonna go next? Oh, I was gonna move on to like the
Yeah.
things that aren't allowed in organic. And
Right, right.
the first thing I wanted to talk about was genetically modified
GMOs.
GMOs.
Yeah.
Those are the big one, and we get absolutely like 100% the most questions about this.
Yeah. Well, and people know they should avoid them,
Yeah.
but I don't think they have a clear understanding of what they are always.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear around them. So genetically modified organisms, in today's the way we look at it, and when you look at the non-GMO project, what they mean is organisms made with gene editing technology, where you're inserting genes from one place, from like one animal or organism into another.
Right.
You're actually
And
like
these can be animals or plants.
these can be animals or plants. You're like inserting like new instructions into
Yeah.
the DNA of something.
So what are the most common, genes that they insert?
That
I
I don't know.
well,
I don't know the specifics of, like, how exactly
I
that
would I
works.
would envision, like, for a plant, it would be something that made it less appealing to bugs
Oh, in terms
or
of yeah,
less
in terms of
appealing
the
to
general the
predators.
sensitive I thought you meant,
Yeah.
like, exactly what,
No, no,
okay, 'cause
general,
I was gonna say
general.
that is, like, way too deep for me.
Yeah,
So, for
yeah.
example, yeah, I mean, the biggest one is Roundup Ready, plants that can resist
Oh,
different yeah,
yeah.
like, that can resist different pesticide that can resist herbicides. That's, like, kind of the biggest one, but I kinda wanna back it up a little bit and get more into
Okay,
the history of this because
okay.
I just find this so fascinating in, like,
Yeah,
a dorky
yeah.
way. So yeah, people, we've been genetically modifying things for as long as we've been growing things and, had contact with animals. And that's through the breeding process, right? Everything we eat and the animals in our house and on our plates are genetically modified, but this
Mhm.
happened over time through breeding. when we're using this GMO technology, this is a shortcut, like
Right.
using these insertion of like foreign genes. And not again, speaking as a company, we don't use any genetically modified ingredients in terms of in this modern sense of using gene editing technology. But we actually are all consuming a different form of GMO every day for the most part, and that's things made like mutagenically through radiation.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so I just was telling Larry about this. This is like so fascinating.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and I hope everyone is like staying with me because it's not so specifically about your pet, but we'll get there, I promise. Um, so mutagenic technology was basically it started in the 1930s when atomic energy was a big thing and scientists wanted to find something to do with it other than making bombs. I think people mostly want to feel, in the scientific community that they're working for the good of humanity, right?
Yes. Yes.
So scientists started exposing all kinds of seeds to gamma rays to just see what sort of mutations would happen. And there are now 3,000 crops today that were created this way, 75% of which are food crops.
Wow.
So we're all eating food.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah, we're all eating food that was like created in a super weird way.
That's
Um,
crazy.
and I think a lot of people would be terrified if they knew this. The same
Yeah.
people that have a problem with GMOs. Back to modern GMOs.
Yeah.
So this was the radiation was a really random way. Like no one knew what was going to happen shooting gamma rays at things. It's just like
Yeah.
sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I think that they did eventually come up with more targeted ways of doing this, but gene editing technology is more specific, right?
Mhm.
Scientists can create exactly what they want for this. Now, why is this bad for your pets? Um, Most of the genetically modified crops are created to resist pesticides. So, for example, things that pesticides are, they're fungicides, they're herbicides, they're insecticides. They're things
Mhm.
that we spray on crops to make them like easier to raise in massive amounts without
Mhm.
having to worry about things like weeding.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we
so
can just spray and the weeds are gone.
weeds are gone and the plant that we want to grow grows.
Mhm.
And there are currently on the market 12 crops that are food crops that are
Wow.
approved for use in the United States, which a lot of people I actually think that's a small amount, right?
That
Um,
seems small, but
it's
I
doesn't it
guess
seem small?
but which ones are they?
Now here's the
Give me
rub.
one
There are crops that
one
are in
example.
everything.
Very
I
nice,
like
yes.
to so it's apples, alfalfa, which is a common feed crop.
Mhm.
Um, rainbow papaya.
Wow.
That's a weird one.
That is
That's for viral resistance because there was
okay.
this virus that was like wiping out all the papayas in Hawaii. So that
Yes.
that doesn't seem so bad, right?
Right, right.
There's canola. That's a really big one because that's like pretty much in everything.
Yep,
Soy,
naturally.
corn, sugar beets,
Mhm.
summer squashes. Oh god, I'm missing a couple. Potatoes,
Yep.
one animal, salmon. That's one of the food crops.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
which is that I mean, that actually creeps me out.
Have you seen the difference between they put the wild fish and the GMO fish together?
Aren't they, like, huger and, like, less pink?
Oh, it's
Yeah,
like
it's
Frankenfish, they call it.
insane. And then they're
Yeah,
designed to grow really fast. And then there's one okay, I'm missing one.
it'll come to you.
I'm not gonna beat myself up too hard about it because I think everyone gets the idea. These
Yeah,
are ingredients that are in everything.
yeah.
And the
Oh,
ones
canola oil.
right? They're almost in everything.
Mhm.
So that's a really big deal. And like I said, I'm not intrinsically afraid of GMOs, but just in the concept in terms of what they can do. Oh, the pink pineapple. Did I say that?
Oh, no, you didn't say the pink pineapple.
that's my favorite one.
Everybody needs a pink pineapple.
Yeah, it's like I mean, it's an Instagram. I think it came out pretty recently. So
Yeah.
basically,
What about, like, the pink lady apples?
I
What
mean, no, I
what's
think
this
that
one?
those are just bred. So the
Okay.
apples that are GMOs, they're Arctic varieties, so they're designed to do like better in the cold,
Oh, okay.
and they're designed to bruise. They don't turn brown. A big
Ah,
consumer.
yeah.
And one of the things about this is like a lot of food waste happens because things look brown. So
Mhm.
that's it's kind of a shelf life issue.
Yeah.
Again, like that's really the big problem as far as I see it are the
Mhm.
crops that are designed to be glyphosate resistant. the BT crops, which those produce a
Mhm.
bacteria that bugs don't like, that kill certain bugs, which actually BT is also an organic pesticide. So you can use it kind of in isolation on
Mhm.
organic crops. It just can't be, produced
Right,
genetically.
right.
So I think this is a good segue. Oh, does anyone have any questions about GMOs? I know I just spit out a lot of stuff without
I
necessarily
haven't Alicia, you're popular today. I haven't noticed any questions, but lots of people are really interested in this. We wouldn't be able to feed the world without these advances. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Uh, and I don't know if this will show the whole comment. World.
I see it. I think it's dropping
Yeah,
off at I. And like I said,
yeah,
again, like I am coming from a place of I don't.
there. Weeds are always an issue. When we talked to the farm owner, we could see he had to shake to his hands and head like a Parkinson's type tremor. All of that chemical dump herbicide runs into the well water and it's so toxic. That's at a farm that Janet stopped at. The ground was bare under the crop, no grass or weeds growing. Wow.
Yeah,
That's that's something.
it's pretty creepy. There is this concept that's not necessarily organic of integrated pest management, right? Where
Mhm.
it's like you use the least invasive methods first, but certain pests, certain invasive species, like really, you
Right.
do have to, um, you know, go that route. Again, I prioritize organic in my food and in our food. Evermore, like we use organic.
Yeah.
So there are very good reasons for this.
Yeah.
So let's move on to glyphosate. Glyphosate. I always say
Glyphosate.
it backwards. I
We
like
can
I talk
we
about
can
this.
say Roundup.
Let's move on to Roundup.
Let's move on to Roundup.
It's so
Is
funny. I
Roundup
always
like
I always say it backwards, even though I talk about it
yeah.
all the time. I had this
Is
crazy
Roundup
list.
the number 1 pesticide on the planet?
It is in terms.
Probably.
It's the number one herbicide on the planet.
Herbicide, okay.
And basically, because you divide pesticide into these different
Right,
categories, and
right.
it's an herbicide, right? It kills plants. I'm just gonna say
Mm,
Roundup from now on because
yeah.
I get
Right,
nervous on these Facebook lives and then I always switch it.
that's okay.
And so the main use is in these GMO crops that are bred to resist it, no weeds.
Mhm.
So it it's the WHO links it to as a carcinogen, right? Like if you listen
Right,
to a lot of like industry scientists, they'll say it's safe in the amounts that we're getting it in. And this might be true for humans. A lot of us might not be getting enough. I mean, I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And there is, a lot of debate amongst various scientific groups how bad it really is.
right.
But keep in mind, our dogs have been shown to have 30 times the amount
Yeah,
that humans get. Um,
yeah.
so
They
that's
walk on it
they
barefoot,
walk on it
eat
barefoot, it's in their
they eat
food.
grass. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
That's actually another huge GMO crop, lawn grass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because, all these
Yeah,
when you see people, like, spraying the lawns with, like, the powder and that's Roundup. So
yes.
this is another exposure that dogs have, that
Mhm.
we really don't at the same level because, they're digging in
Right.
it, they're rolling in it.
Yeah.
But so it has been linked by various research to like everything that could go wrong with the body, like on some level. People are, and like I said, there are various degrees of scientific evidence about this.
Right.
But again, the WHO lists it as a probable carcinogen. And what we're finding out more and more is that where it's really problematic is it affects the biome, right? The
Mhm.
the gut biome, the gut microbiome,
Right.
but also in the soil.
Mhm.
So the stuff is ending up everywhere. It's changing the bacterial balance in the soil. And the way it works. Oh, I forgot to go say how it works as an herbicide because people might want to know how it kills plants.
Oh, yeah, how does it kill plants, huh?
So it inhibits an enzyme. I think it's called like the Shiki pathway or something I can't pronounce. It inhibits an enzyme that helps in the creation of proteins for like various plant processes, like growth, photosynthesis.
Mhm.
So that's how it works, and it has this effect on sort of on smaller organisms that are, and that's why it's a problem. That's how it kind of affects the bacterial aspect of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where we're really seeing an effect on the health is like, on people's gut flora and in the soil. And the stuff does not break down very easily.
That's the huge part for
There
me.
so I learned that
It's here forever.
well, it's not quite there forever. There are two things.
Oh,
There are
okay.
two organisms that can eat it. Do you want to guess what they are?
I have no idea.
Bacillus cereus, which is the most common form of food poisoning. Um, and the other one is Bacillus anthracis, also known as
Anthrax?
anthrax.
Oh
Uh,
my god. So we need a biological weapon and something that causes food poisoning to destroy Roundup.
yeah, I mean, it's just like
That is
this
mind-boggling.
is the sort of thing that, it's this sort of disruption to like the biome of the soil is creating conditions where these pathogenic
Yeah.
organisms can survive and thrive. So,
Wow.
anytime we introduce anything into nature, something finds a way to like take advantage of it
Mhm.
eventually.
Yeah.
So it's just like they'll probably develop like one day we'll find some fungus that can deal with it. It seems like
Yeah.
there's turning out that there's like a mushroom for
There
everything.
has to be
So
something else.
so
Janet has an interesting comment, and I'd love your viewpoint on this. She lives in further upstate New York, and they do mow the side of the roads,
oh yeah,
the
I mean,
highways and such, but now they're spraying them.
that's crazy. That puts organic farmers in such jeopardy.
Yeah,
Um
and even if the organic farmers put a sign, who's gonna say that that town employee is gonna stop
Listen,
spraying?
that is
Or
I mean, that's like a sue the city level. I mean,
yeah,
unfortunately, the way we achieve things in this country is through lawsuits.
yeah.
So that's
But, and if it's a windy day, even if the town employee is compliant and stops spraying near the farm, it's still gonna
actually
drift
there
over,
are a lot of organic farms that have been really compromised this way. There was a lawsuit against Bob's Red Mill because their organic products
right?
became contaminated with Roundup that sprayed from a nearby farm. So
Wow.
this level of contamination is actually a very real concern. For this reason, we have, in a lot of these crops where it's really heavily used or feed crops. For
Mhm.
this reason, we have, decided, in our poultry products, our beef and lamb are all 100% grass fed. But, in our poultry products, we go for GMO free feed,
Yeah.
which should be like a be all end all in itself. However, there's a new use of Roundup, which is it's used as a desiccant. So
As a desiccant,
yeah, so
dry
basically
things up.
yes. So it's used to dry things up. And what's happening is certain crops, that are actually peas are a big one, oats, wheat,
Uh-huh.
legumes, they're actually spraying it on at the end of the growing season. So these
Mm.
crops dry up faster. So you're going to find certain foods are like way more likely to like have higher amounts. And a lot of these are ingredients in pet food. So
So you mean like let's say I bought a bag of dried kidney beans at the grocery store. They could be contaminated
They
with
could
Roundup?
be they could be contaminated, oats can be
Wow.
contaminated, pea protein is a big one.
Yeah, pea
It's
protein.
not it's like it's getting more widespread, it's not a universal use,
Uh-huh.
but it is something that's grown so in the past, going GMO free would have been, like, kind of more of, like, a guarantee
Mhm.
that you're not gonna have the stuff in your food, but now it's, like, a little bit more,
Now it can sneak in
it can
anywhere.
sneak in. We actually switched to fully organic chicken, based on our own testing, right?
Wow.
So, like, we did some testing to just see, like, hey, what's going on here? And
Mhm.
everything else was fine, but we did notice some in our chicken. So we switched to fully organic chicken and we're monitoring our turkey.
Yeah.
Because, we don't want to introduce this stuff
And
in our pet food.
how often do you test your ingredients incoming or when you
Well,
switch
we test our finished
suppliers?
products. The Roundup thing we just started doing.
Yeah,
So we are less concerned about our 100% grass-fed stuff.
of course.
Like really it's the poultry that we have to track. Here's an
Yeah.
interesting too thing too. Roundup passes through your system pretty quickly, right? It
Right.
doesn't tend to bioaccumulate except, and this I think is really for people who are, especially home preparers or people that are buying certain raw formulas.
Mhm.
Um, so if you're feeding a mammal, like beef, lamb, anything like that,
Mhm.
in the muscle tissue, it doesn't bioaccumulate. In the
Right.
heart and the places where we really do see some bioaccumulation is the liver. And I always recommend we again, like organic on livers or just
Yeah.
cleaner ingredients on livers. That's very important. The kidneys and the bone. So that's really somewhere where you're going to want to look on like grass fed. Now, in avian tissues and birds, it tends to like accumulate more widely.
Mhm.
So there's like whether you're buying like a breast or like a neck,
Right.
like
Right.
if that bird is exposed to it, it's going to be more. It's going to be like universally distributed across tissues.
Okay.
So this is just like a little side note for people that are.
Yeah. But definitely, and for mineral reasons, if you're feeding organ meat from a mammal, a land mammal, you want that animal grass-fed. You don't want feedlot liver,
Oh yeah,
kidneys, anything.
yeah. So
Um,
there's just
that
there's so many reasons for that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. Where was I with I think we talked about
Oh, so
Roundup for a while.
yeah, yeah. So beyond Roundup, are there other, pesticides we should be concerned about and
Oh,
herbicides?
there are hundreds of pesticides.
Yeah,
And I think people get so caught up on the Roundup and they think because, these non-genetically modified ingredients don't have it, that, every other ingredient's like okay, because it doesn't have Roundup. One of the
right.
things that I see companies doing a lot in their marketing is they'll be like, whatever types of ingredients and GMO free vegetables. And then you look at the list
Mhm.
of ingredients and nothing in there would have been GMO free anyway, or would
Yeah,
have had a GMO. It's
right,
like there's
right.
no such thing as GMO kale, you know?
Yeah,
So now onto those leafy greens and fruits and other things.
yeah.
What There's so many pesticides, but the biggest one, the most widespread use one is a class of chemicals called neonicotinoids. I can say that.
Neonicotinoids. Yeah,
Neonics. They call them
okay,
neonics,
okay.
for brevity. So
Yeah.
neonics, they kill insects
Mhm.
and they work on all insects. Um, and they do something, I forget, they're like a neurotoxin.
Yeah, most bug killers are
Yeah. So,
neurotoxins.
and they are not just used on, plants, but they're also used on those flea and tick collars that are killing
Mhm.
animals. So those Seresto
Yeah,
collars, where there's that lawsuits, like all of those things, their mechanism is neonics. And as we know, they can cause seizures, they can cause lung problems, they cause all kinds of health problems.
havoc,
Yes,
yes.
they can wreak havoc. What other symptoms do dogs that are exposed to those get? I'm just
Tremors, drooling, basically anything that is neurologic in origin, but the seizures are the most scary.
yeah. Oh, I have epilepsy. Seizures are very scary.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
So anyway, this class of chemical, it's systemic, right? So
Mhm.
when they spray it on fruits or vegetables, you can even put it on a seed. It grows inside of the plant. You cannot wash it off.
Wow.
So for me, this is the biggest argument for organic, like hands
Mhm.
down. Like as scary as Roundup is, I actually find this stuff even scarier.
That you can't get rid of
You
it.
cannot get rid of it. Like there's no washing it off.
Wow.
And it's not, with like the GMO Roundup stuff, if it's being used not as a desiccant, they apply it kind of mostly at the beginning of the growing season.
Mhm.
This, it's just like in the plant, it grows with the plant, and it's terrifying. And you tend to see this used on like leafy greens, tomatoes, berries, the sort of things that you would think would have like exposure to,
Sure.
the, and they are the most commonly used insecticide worldwide. They're three of the four are banned in Europe, um,
Yeah.
but there's so many loopholes that they still get used. So they really are used worldwide. They are now thought to be responsible for bee colony collapse.
Oh, that's not
And
good.
they've actually, because of the havoc that they wreak on ecosystems, they're killing things at the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah.
They have, in one way or another, been associated with every endangered species.
Wow.
Yeah, they're really, I mean, for as much energy as people, focus on Roundup, I think that the stuff
Mhm.
in a lot of ways is
Stuff is
even worse.
scarier.
It's scarier. And that's something I think that's like kind of the number one reason alone where I would say organic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, without a doubt.
and just it's just really, like I said, the stuff is terrifying and it's really just like wreaking widespread havoc on the planet.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
I mean, if we lose the bees, we have a serious problem.
yeah, and yeah, and it's not just the bees. There's all kinds of there
All
are
kinds of helpful insects.
all kinds of helpful insects. So, I mean, so this like kind of speaks not just to like the health, both of these pesticides, it's not just the health, it's the environment. And, we all want a planet for ourselves and our dogs for a very long time.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a
Um,
doubt.
wow. Does anyone have any questions about this stuff? I know it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of science, guys,
Yeah.
but I'm learning so much that I didn't know before. And I was looking at your website, your sourcing page, where you tell us exactly where everything comes from.
Oh yeah. We
And
list our meat sources.
to the farm,
Yeah.
not just, Acme Meat Company. It's this farm.
Oh yeah, we're super proud of our vendor partners. We've worked with some of these people for like, I mean, we used to not be based on the West Coast, but like we've worked with some of our West Coast people for like 7 years now.
Mhm.
So it's really important to us to feature who they are. Their logos are
Yeah.
well, our beef and our lamb logos are on our box. The other ones are on the website. So and then in terms of, I just think it's really important in general. People make these like broad claims about sustainable, right? In
Mhm.
terms of their produce or just in terms of anything, or ethical. And I think it's really important to find out like exactly what the practices are. And that is the nice
Yeah.
thing about organic. Like it does give you like a general parameter, like, okay, this is defined. Like
Right,
we know
right.
what this means.
Yeah.
Once you get into, sort of either, just conventional when you're dealing with a company like us or any sort of scaled company, right? You're When you're sourcing, it's not like you can necessarily like go to the farmer's market and get these like smaller amounts of things because plenty of great producers are not certified organic.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really hard to be certified organic.
yeah, if you're a small farmer, you can be doing a lot of stuff right. And either you don't want to deal with like the paperwork, or you're doing like one thing that's like not necessarily in that same practice, but you have like a good justification for it and you're doing it
Right, right.
right.
Janet
So
has an interesting question. Her friend has a chubby puppy and suffering from mobility issues. So the thought behind some of your ingredients,
oh sure,
safflower
safflower.
oil,
We get so many
sweet
people mad about our safflower oil, which is organic by the way.
okay.
The reason we oh wait, I should rest
So safflower oil,
and the
sweet
sweet potatoes.
potatoes, eggshells versus bones, that's probably a cooking issue.
Actually,
Yes.
so oh, okay. I think that that's the whole question that went through. It's just like kind of repeating.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, while we're getting into ingredients, so we do use organic safflower oil. It was very hard to find. The reason
Mhm.
And we use a high linoleic safflower oil, right?
Okay.
So there's oleic safflower oil, which is what you find on the shelves of grocery stores. Like you cannot get this stuff without going to a specialty supplier. The
Okay.
reason we use safflower oil is like pretty much like the high linoleic is the most concentrated source of linoleic acid,
Yeah,
which is an essential fatty acid. It is an omega-6, right? So people get really scared
right.
about that. But we need omega-6s. Like linoleic
Yeah,
acid is essential to, there's actually even like
and
an APCO minimum for it.
yeah, people focus so much on omega-3s, they forget about the other fatty
And
acids.
if you have an excessive amount of omega-6s and the ratio is a high ratio, then yes, it's highly
Mhm.
inflammatory. So you don't want too much of it.
Right.
And so that's part of why we go for this highly concentrated source. But we're also very conscientious about how we balance it with our
Mhm.
other ingredients. We use that fish oil. We use the
Yeah.
grass-fed beef, which has like, the better ratio.
Right, right.
So that's that is a very important consideration for it. But there's a lot of I don't want to say hysteria, but information going around about how all seed oils are bad. And right,
Yeah.
these are seed oils are, it's like canola oil. That is like a very commonly genetically modified ingredient. So
Mhm.
already there,
Yeah.
people don't like that. It's
Right.
used in frying situations, right? These seed oils are
Mhm.
very popular for frying things in restaurants. And you're
Sure.
dealing with high temperatures there, right? And when you're dealing with those
Right.
high temperatures, those seed oils go to bad places.
They do. They
There's
do.
like huge rancidity and storage issues. So, we buy very small amounts to make sure that
Right.
we can get through them
Well,
pretty
and it's
quickly.
not like your food, like it's in the top 5 ingredients.
No, no,
You're
it's like
almost
the very bottom. Actually, it's
you're
funny.
almost eating it. Oh, you got a label there?
I brought a box out to just
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, it's like after fish oil, and we do use
Yeah.
and it's like right before pumpkin seeds. Like we do use some
Yeah.
barley in our food, and the barley's 2.5% of the formula. So
Mhm.
it's like behind
Yeah.
that, and then for a grain-free one, it's behind
Yeah.
something very small too.
So it's almost like a supplement
Yeah,
of milk.
and that's how we're
Almost a
using it. We're using it
yeah,
as a
to
supplement.
match a specific
Yes,
need.
we're
What
using it.
about the sweet potatoes?
I mean, sweet potatoes are great. They're like a wonderful source of vitamin A. Like you don't want to overdo it, right?
Right.
Um, and we don't use sweet potatoes in our grain-free formulas, right? They're like our super low carb formulas.
Yeah.
We find that a lot of our dogs with GI issues do tend to do better, with a little bit more starch. And that's kind of our
Yeah.
bread and butter is these older dogs that need like lower phosphorus diets, and a lot of them
Mhm.
have GI issues. Um, so
Yeah.
if you got a dog
Carbs are
that's
not evil.
no, carbs are
Everybody
not evil. I think
they're
you
not.
said you had a very controversial.
Yeah, well, actually, it was really good, talking with Jen from Volhard Pet Nutrition, and, they use grains in their formula as you offer some grain inclusive,
4.5% of the whole formula,
selections.
just FYI to
Yeah,
everyone.
but, some dogs are gonna do better with 10% carbs, with even 25% carbs, and that's okay. You feed the dog in front of you.
I love that you say that. You said that last time too, feed the dog
I
in front of
did,
you, and I
I
did that.
did.
Oh, and just
They have to.
back to those sweet potatoes, it's about
Yeah,
6% of the total formula. So
okay. So
one
it's a small component.
yeah, it's a small commitment. One thing after the protein ingredients, we don't stack anything, right? Like
Right.
everything is there for a reason to provide like a very targeted aspect of nutrition, and we offer a wide variety because sometimes, I mean, our ingredient list is long. And a lot of people we do love rotation, but a lot of people do feed their dog the same thing every day. So we feel that it's important to get as wide an array of as
Yeah.
wide of an array of things in there as possible.
Yeah,
So
and most of your nutrients come from whole food. You're not big on a lot of
no,
supplemental
no, I
things
think we only supplement with zinc at the moment.
at the
Um,
moment. Yeah,
as far as we cut copper out of two of our formulas, but I mean it was a
that's
minimal inclusion.
yeah,
It's like we're so close to the AFCO numbers, which I honestly think shouldn't really apply to fresh food, but it's such
yeah.
like an across the board
Yeah, in the
like
United States, you kinda have to
yeah
compare to AFCO,
yeah. Well,
uh,
and in Europe you have to FEDIAF.
FEDIAF,
So
but
um,
I think FEDIAF is a better standard.
yeah, I think so, and we do actually formulate to FEDIAF too.
Yeah, most of us do,
Yeah,
but
so
then when you're putting it on a package, on a shelf or what have you, you've gotta look like this everybody else, so you compare to AFCO.
yeah. Oh, and calcium, eggshell calcium versus bone meal.
Right.
It's pretty much impossible to source grass-fed bone meal.
Yeah,
That's the reason why. Like, I
yeah.
mean, I guess if we like worked specifically with a rancher to create it, but it's not. I mean, and then you have to test. It's just not something.
Well, and something that most people don't know, the calcium content of land mammal bone varies greatly across the different bones, the age of the animal, grass-fed versus feedlot. So the calcium in a front leg bone is higher than the calcium in a back leg bone. So yes, you would have to
So we'd
test
have to get a
every
commercial
single.
product that was like, uniform and tested.
Yeah,
And, a lot of companies do use bone meal, but like I said, we won't use a product that's not a grass-fed bone meal.
yeah,
And then there is the phosphorus aspect, right? Like
right.
we have our calcium phosphorus ratio, and it's the where it is. Like if we were to include bone meal, that would change a lot of things. And we do keep our phosphorus closer to the minimum because
Mhm.
again, we do deal with like a lot of those compromised dogs.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
That's
just
that's
that's just
good.
where we'd love to be able to offer, and hopefully we will soon offer a wider variety of formulas to address.
How many formulas do you
Right
have
now
now?
we only have four.
Only 4.
Yeah, only 4. Like I said, our next stop is cat food,
Yes.
which I have 2 guys that'll be very happy about, but they're not picky, they'll eat anything.
Yeah.
So,
There'll be good demand for that. Cat
yeah.
people want better food.
Yeah, the problem with cat food is cats.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, they're
They are
just
such a
they
challenge.
are such a challenge, and once they have commercial food, it's very hard to get them off of it because of all of, like, the palatants and things they put on
Yeah,
it, so
yeah.
gotta
They they're spray the end of the food is the application of this flavor enhancer.
yeah,
That's literally addictive.
it really is. I mean, you gotta hook them young on the fresh food. I think with
Yeah,
cats, that's the trick, so
that
anyway,
is.
working on the cat food, we're pretty overdue on that. We've gotten hate mail for not having it ready yet.
Oh, jeez.
I'm serious, like, we've had people send us,
Oh,
like,
I
"You don't care about cats."
oh, the number of people who wanna be trolls,
Yeah.
some days you just have to shake your head.
Oh, yeah, no, it's just funny, like, you want a product so badly that you're gonna, like, basically curse us over.
Harassing the
Yeah,
company doesn't make it happen any faster.
does not make it happen any faster. I mean, we had a pandemic to deal with
Yeah, yeah.
because we started it, and it's interesting right now is that has actually been the hardest part of the pandemic, in
Oh,
terms of
coming
getting
out of it?
things.
Yeah.
Um, we with the avian flu, like, so many birds have been
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately killed in these horrific ways, and because of, we have a turkey formula, which is one of our best sellers, our grain-free turkey. It is an absolutely beautiful formula, and so many
Yeah,
dogs thrive on it, but between turkey being a seasonal bird, like, right
yeah.
after between Thanksgiving, like, between October and basically for us it was February, it's, like, basically so difficult to get turkey.
Right,
And with
right.
the avian flu and so many flocks being decimated,
Yeah.
but we still have I mean, we've got
You
it.
still have
We
it,
still have
right.
it. We didn't have it for, like, 2 weeks, but we have it.
Good.
And it's a great I mean, I love that formula so much, but sourcing that has been a nightmare. What has not been a
Mhm.
nightmare for us, but is a nightmare for everyone else is eggs. Um,
Oh, yeah.
we use pastured eggs.
Mhm,
Um, where and since we started using pastured eggs, like, right, we started with Vital Farms, like, originally back in the day. We were
mhm.
the only food company, human or animal,
Wow,
sourcing bulk pastured eggs.
wow.
No one else was using it. And today with the company that we are working with, again, we are the only commercial, supplier that makes, like, a finished food product that's sourcing pastured eggs in bulk.
Poached eggs,
Yeah,
wow.
like, nobody else does this.
That's crazy.
Isn't it?
It really is. But
You would think
I love feeding eggs to my dogs.
yeah, I mean, they're great,
It's
and
the ultimate protein.
they really are. I've totally gone into a different direction from this organic discussion, but we'll bring it back on the next one. I think
We
we're
will.
good on, so I wanna get to these eggs. So, we used to early on supplement with choline,
Mhm.
because we didn't have enough choline naturally occurring, but when we switched from just, like, they were cage-free, certified humane, like, they were good eggs.
Right,
When we
right.
switched to pastured eggs,
Wow, your
our
choline's
choline
level
levels shot up to
oh,
the
that's
point
great.
where we didn't need to supplement.
That's
And
fantastic.
it's crazy because you don't like if you look this up, if you look up pastured eggs choline, like, you're not gonna find anything. But
Yeah.
the lab numbers don't lie. Um,
No, no, they don't.
and this is actually so we frequently test, right? We test every batch that we do, like, from every production day, we'll test one batch. But
Mhm.
everything that's made together in a day with the same ingredients, that
Right,
all gets
right.
tested.
Yeah,
And what we test for on every run is we do, like, a food screen, right? So
yeah.
you're looking at, like, pathogens, we're looking at mold, we're looking at
Mhm.
fungus. Nothing gets sold to the public until that's all clear. But
Right,
we also
right.
do, a mineral panel.
Mhm.
So we can see all the minerals that are in the food. That's actually how we spot check, because of the few supplements that we use, like, that's how you
Sure.
can check the inclusion. But we can also
Yes.
see, like, the seasonal variation that happens,
Mhm.
in the cows and the sheep particularly. It's really interesting. Like, depending on
Yeah.
the time of year, you're gonna get, like, different levels of things.
Mhm.
And then beyond that, that's where we're like we'll spot check our omega levels. We started spot checking for Roundup,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you
glyphosate.
said that. Glyphosate.
So and we'll spot check our omega ratios too. Or if we change something, we can see like, okay, how did this move the dial?
Change a supplier,
Yeah.
change.
We also spot check our iodine.
Yes.
Um, we spot check the things that we're like, okay, this is really important that we
Yeah.
just, because there are sort of natural variation in things. So that's just
Well, and you have to be sure you're not drifting too far off your
exactly. We want to keep things in spec, and we do. But this is actually, I think I brought this up because one of the we were just talking about omega ratios. Pastured eggs
Mhm.
have better omega ratios, as do
Sure.
grass fed beef and grass fed lamb. So when we
Mhm.
switched, we were using, we were originally using a really good, it was still grain finished, but like on pasture. So they were still on the pasture, but they also got grain. So this was
Mhm.
like a very high welfare
Yeah.
beef. And we couldn't afford grass fed at first. And then, but we finally got to the point where we could make the commitment to fully 100% grass fed. Again, we lab tested, and our omega ratios like completely shifted
Wow.
to the point where we had to like change our oil inclusions. But like,
That's amazing.
like you read about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's so when you read stuff in some, like, Newsweek article, like, "Grass-fed beef is better for you,"
Mhm.
it's, like, very abstract, it's like, yes, this makes sense that it is, but
But to
then
actually put the numbers on
but
it.
when you actually, like, test it for yourself based on, like, these changes that you
Yeah,
made, like, in your product, it's just so incredible to see it.
it really
Um,
is.
so I can say, like, these certain claims that are made, like, organic, grass-fed, these things are real. They do make a difference.
They make a huge difference.
But also a lot of companies like insinuate that things that are, like there's like a lot of times when I think things are insinuated that aren't necessarily true. It's this very
Mhm.
broad language can be used to
Yeah.
make people have assumptions, right? Um oh no,
Oh,
Lori, you froze. Okay, you
oh,
unfroze. You
you
did a
froze for a second too. Internet glitch.
yeah,
But
okay, so we both froze. I don't know
they're
if we
warning.
froze for the peoples,
I
but we froze for each
know.
other.
I think it's them warning that we've used up most of our hour.
Oh yeah, wow. Okay.
Wow, look at that.
Time flies when you're being a nerd.
Yeah,
Um,
uh,
well,
Janet has one comment on eggs. Uh, to me, it's obvious when you crack a free range egg in the bowl
oh yeah.
compared to a supermarket egg.
Oh, for
The
sure.
yolks are thicker
They're thicker. They
and
can
they
cheat
have
that
more
a
color.
little. You can cheat that by putting marigold in chicken
Sure,
feed.
yes, you
Yeah,
can.
but you're right, the texture is still different
The
though.
texture's different,
It's like
and the
you can
yolk color is spectacular.
yeah, it's got that like gel almost,
Yeah,
when it's like a pastured
yeah,
egg.
and of
Uh,
course, when you taste it, you taste the difference.
oh, it's so good.
So
I
good.
get my eggs from the farm around the corner, so I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah. My technician has a flock of chickens,
Oh, so
so
you're lucky
that
too.
I'm lucky too.
Yeah.
Well, Hannah, it's been great talking
Yeah.
with you, and we're
uh,
gonna do this 2 more
Yeah, we're
times.
gonna do this 2 more times, and just to give people a preview, we're gonna get more I know we spent a lot of time at the bottom of the food chain. We're gonna move up and talk about things like antibiotics and hormones, and then move into animal welfare and regenerative agriculture. And we might get I have 3 of these sessions, right? So if I get
Yeah.
to that next time, we'll have to come up with something fun to talk about on the 3rd one.
We'll talk about anything. You guys
Yeah.
know you're always welcome to ask
Yep.
questions.
Jump
And
in.
if I can grab Janet to put the link in the website to both Evermore Pet Food and the Healthy Dog Expo, because remember, you can come meet Hannah in person and talk all sorts of nerdy things at my event in May. So we want you there. Evermore will be there, loads of other great people, and we'll have a great time. So healthydogexpo.com and evermorepetfood.com, right?
Yep, and, that is correct, and we're, at Evermore Pet Food on Instagram,
Oh,
and
Instagram too.
yeah, we do the
I'm just
Instagram.
getting started in Instagram.
Oh,
I'm a little bit late.
it's like once you get the it takes a little while to get the hang of it, but I think once you get the hang
Yeah,
of it, it's super fun.
yeah.
Does anyone I know we got a couple more minutes, does anyone have any closing
Alicia
questions?
says, thank you. She can't wait. Oops. Oh, we got the privacy policy.
Oh, yeah, you don't need the privacy, everyone can just leave off the end of the
We can leave off,
URL.
yeah. And if you guys have questions, just pop them in the comments and we'll be checking them periodically. And you can always reach out to Evermore from their website.
Yeah, please do. We're human beings. We don't outsource customer service.
No.
We've got a lovely lady that works for us named Erin who like handles like every like, nuts and bolts customer issues. And if anyone has any like, intensely deep questions, like
Mhm.
we all put our heads together on them and like make sure we get you the right answer.
That sounds great. So thank you everybody for being here. And I think I will see you guys on Friday, but just stay tuned to the Facebook page for the next update and time of the next live. Bye, everyone.
Hi, thank you, Laurie, for having me.
Thank you for being here.